Chapter 2. What goes on over on the other side? And what happens on that other side to people who are having a near-death experience? What takes place over there? Virtually all the shows and discussions we see on TV center around a tunnel of light. Yet this is not symptomatic of every case. In fact, the 1982 Gallup poll cited above found only 9% claimed to have passed through a tunnel of some sort. There are instead an array of characteristics, of which some experiencers have a few and some experiencers have a lot, but not everyone has them all in a single episode. One of the best researchers in this field is P.M.H. Atwater, who has over 3,000 adult experiencers in her research base. She synthesizes most of her research and that of all the other significant near-death experience researchers in her book, The Big Book of Near-Death Experiences. There are, she says, several signature features: out-of-body experiences, a light that shines brighter than the sun, a voiceless voice that speaks telepathically, calming feelings of total acceptance and unconditional love, a sudden knowingness and the feeling, the need, or being told to return. Many experience a life review, reliving every instant of their earthly life. Children do not generally report reliving this book of life, their life experiences, but approximately 30% of adults do. This reliving of their life comes in various expressions. Most describe something etched in the fabric of the universe and accessible through a higher vibrational pattern. Others describe an actual book in which each moment of their earthly life existence is recorded. Still others talk about a high-definition or holographic TV-like recording. Experiencers tell of not only reliving their lives from their own point of view, but also from the points of view of the others with whom they have interacted. On page 26, P.M.H. Atwater synthesizes the 4 types of near-death experiences, and I think this is the best categorization of near-death experiences. The first category, number 1, is the initial experience, sometimes referred to as the non-experience or awakening. This usually involves only 1, maybe 2 or 3 elements, such as a loving nothingness, the living dark, a friendly voice, a brief out-of-body experience, or a manifestation of some type. Usually experienced by those who seem to need the least amount of evidence for proof of survival, who need the least amount of shake-up in their lives at that point in time. Often, this becomes a seed experience or an introduction to other ways of perceiving and recognizing reality. Rarely is any other element present. The incident rate is 70% with child experiencers and 20% with adult experiencers. The second category of near-death experiences is the unpleasant and/or hell-like experience, sometimes referred to as distressing and inner cleansing and self-confrontational. This is an encounter with a threatening void, stark limbo or hellish purgatory, or scenes of a startling and unexpected indifference like being shunned, even hauntings from one's own past. Scenarios are usually experienced by those who seem to have deeply suppressed. Category 2 is an unpleasant and/or hell-like experience, sometimes referred to as distressing, inner cleansing, and self-confrontational. This is an encounter with a threatening void, stark limbo or hellish purgatory, or scenes of a startling and unexpected indifference, like being shunned, even hauntings from one's own past. Scenarios usually experienced by those who seem to have deeply suppressed or repressed guilt, fear, and anger, and/or those who expect some kind of punishment and discomfort after death. Life reviews here are common. Some have previews. The incident rate is only 3% with child experiencers and 15% with adult experiencers. Later in her book, PMH Atwater states, of the 18% in my research base who had unpleasant experiences, only a third of them were truly hellish. The third type category of near-death experience is the pleasant and or heaven-like experience, sometimes referred to as radiant, reassurance, and self-validation. Heaven-like scenarios of loving family reunions with those who have died previously, reassuring religious figures or light beings, validation that life counts, affirmative and inspiring dialogue. Scenarios usually experienced by those who need to know how loved they are and how important life is and how every effort has a purpose in the overall scheme of things. Life reviews in this category of near-death experiences are common. Some have previews of life to come. The incident rate here is 19% with child experiencers and 47% with adult experiencers. And the fourth category of near-death experience is the transcendent experience, sometimes referred to as collective universality, expansive revelations, and alternate realities. Exposure to otherworldly dimensions are common, and scenes beyond the individual's frame of reference. Sometimes this includes revelations of greater truths. They are seldom personal in content. These scenarios are usually experienced by those who are ready for a mind-stretching challenge, and or individuals who are more apt to use, to whatever degree, the truths that are revealed to them. Life reviews in this category are rare. Collective previews of what's to come are common, such as the world's future and evolutionary changes. The incident rate here is 2%, only 2% with child experiencers and 18% with adult experiencers. Occasionally, experiencers see religious figures such as Jesus, Buddha, or Moses, but it is not as often. Let me start that paragraph over. Occasionally, experiencers see religious figures such as Jesus, Buddha, or Moses, but it is not as often as might be expected. Usually they see a departed loved one or a family member, and in many instances they see genderless beings of light, holy, angels. Child experiencers are more likely to see them with wings. We should take note of the unpleasant or hell-like experiences described above in the second category, because they are so little noticed or discussed in general near-death experience folklore. Despite their lower incidence, they are somewhat important and somewhat common. Such experiences of being threatened, of pain and agony, of distress are important for us to understand. We simply have not done enough research and have not posed enough hypothetical questions to lead to verifiable conclusions about why agonizing experiences exist or what they really mean compared to the 85% pleasant experiences. Unpleasant near-death experiences often happen most often to ordinary people who could be considered good by our this worldly standards, and not primarily to people who society would consider bad and deserving of a wake-up call regarding a nefarious life. I would suggest that we might consider that because about 15% of near-death experiences are horrific and about 85% of them are beatific, and because these happen randomly to people of all walks of life, most of us human beings today are somewhere along the way toward our human divine goal. In other words, perhaps most of us, because of our choices through our eternal journey to date, are experiencing 85% at least the beginnings of heaven and still dragging along 15% of hell. Hell here would be defined as the perfections our souls seek to experience but have not yet brought to fruition. And so these random experiences reflect a segment of a totality of our spiritual journey to date. They pick up a piece of ourselves and not the full current being. In the Near Book of Near-Death Experiences, PMH Atwater quotes the words of experiencer Ray Kinman on pages 35 to 36. His first experience took place at the age of 10. These are the words of Ray Kinman. I went to Catholic school and was horsing around with a friend after school on the playground. He was showing me a new judo move that he had learned in his martial arts class. He was going to flip me over his shoulder onto the ground. Something went wrong and I landed directly on my head. I picked myself up from the ground with intense pain in my head and my spine and was going to run to the bathroom, but I fell flat on my face on the concrete. I blacked out completely. It felt as if my body had just come apart and my vision went spiraling out of control. Swirling colors seemed to disappear to a point everywhere like a funnel or something. No, not a funnel. A funnel. Start that paragraph over. Close that door, sweetie, quickly, would you, for me? You start that paragraph over. It felt as if my body had just come apart, and my vision went spiraling out of control. Swirling colors seemed to disappear to a point somewhere, like a funnel or something. No, not a tunnel, a funnel. I was really scared. Somehow I knew that I had to just let go of my fear and roll with the funnel of swirling light. My body was gone. It felt like a blender had just ripped it apart. I still had a body, but it was entirely different. I could see in 3 dimensions, as if I had no body at all, but was just a floating eyeball. There were directions or dimensions, none of them as we think of them, and I was greeted by a being of light and love. It seemed to me inside of itself. Love is far too weak a word to describe this experience. I became love. My entire being, every strand of my spirit spreading throughout the universe had become love times 1,000,000 billion. I found myself in front of some golden gates. There was some kind of fog that obscured any sense of direction, but my pet dog, Skippy, was there. Skippy had died some years earlier and was the only person that I had any real family connection with that was dead. I was overwhelmed with joy and love and embraced my dog with my spirit. At this point, I was told that I must go back, that it was not my time. If it is possible to describe the funnel experience in reverse, this is what it felt like coming back. It felt like my spirit was being stuffed into a jar that was far too small and painful to hold it. I heard the paramedics. I didn't want to come back, but I had to. The second near-death experience for Ray happened when he was 16 years old, and these are his words again. I will skip the details of the death part, as it is far too embarrassing to admit that I had an accidental overdose. When I left my body, it was similar to the first time, but much scarier. I thought that I was going crazy, that I must be losing my mind. I started up the same funnel that I saw many years before. It had a much more intense, fragmented feeling and a certain wrongness as my ego disintegrated into spirit. I was frightened and totally out of control. Again, I realized that I might as well let go and hang on for the ride no matter what. The swirling funnel sucked my spirit out of this world and my body. The intense love and peace and pleasure began to overcome me, and I was no longer Ray. My ego dissolved, but I had the same sense of humor and the same hang-ups. I was once again escorted by a being of immense light and love and holiness. But this time the being was taking me on a trip. Now this is very difficult to describe. Time ceased to exist. Past and future were completely non-existent. I was traveling in an intense, burning now. Now was everything. I ceased to be a noun, a person, place, or thing, and I became a verb, an action. I was raying instead of Ray. I was given a huge message. The being told me, "This is who you really are," as the universe opened up to me. I could not tell the difference between myself and infinite galaxies. I became all-powerful and all-knowing, yet I was still Ray. Then the being introduced me to another being of the most incredible beauty and love that anyone could comprehend. It was a greater being of intense light. It was God. The first being guided me to this light and let it enfold and swallow me up. I became one with love times a million, billion, trillion, forever and ever. We were made of the same stuff. Every being that had ever existed in all of creation was now part of this greater whole being called God. I was one with all of them, and yet I was still Ray, all-powerful, little old me. This is who you really are, thundered the light. It looked like a galaxy, except the points of light were not stars, they were beings. Every being there was singing this incredibly beautiful music and praising God. After some indefinite length of now-ness, I was told that I must go back. I was given another important message. It was very important. I was told that I may return any time I wish to. Coming back to my body felt like I was stuffed into a vessel of pain and exhaustion. Near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences are both life-transcendent experiences, lights, if you will. Near-death experiences, however, are much more intense and life-transformative than out-of-body experiences. Near-death experiences can happen to anyone in any circumstance of life and are not able to be beckoned or selected by individuals wanting them. They're random and are apparently increasing in number at this time in human history. Out-of-body experiences, on the other hand, are the result of self-working up to that level of spirituality and usually happen to people who have trained themselves in meditation and/or spiritual exercises, either contemplative or in the busy world of activities. They are similar but different in intensity, origin, and cause.